So I've been sick for the last week or so. I've been taking Advil, Tylenol, vitamin C, all sorts of things to make me feel better, and nothing seems to do the trick. But I think I figured out just what I need. I think I'll feel better if I take delivery of another new car. With 2 active car projects in the garage, part of me feels like the last thing I need is a third. So this project has to be different. Although it was totaled, it's not a crashed car. All I'm looking to do is replace my daily driver, which is this Volkswagen Jetta. I need something with all-wheel drive that's not an R8 or an Evo. Something with 4 doors, but looks as cool as one with 2. Something with a supercharger, but tame enough to daily drive. Something discounted at the auction, but comes with a clean title. Before it gets here, my first stop is the auto parts store. And that's because I bought a 2015 supercharged Range Rover. Hey man, I've got a pickup. It's an order for a Range Rover.
Just leave it on the cart, roll it in the door, and leave it right by the front. All right, and here goes that. You just sign it.
Oh, right.
All right.
Thank you. Oh, this is cool. No matter how sweet of a deal you think you found at the auction, every car there gets delivered to you with the same 2 problems. The battery is going to be dead, and the oil can't be trusted. So a new battery and an oil change is the first mandatory investment. My wife's car needed the washer fluid. So I've been back and forth with the driver who's delivering this Range Rover because he says he can't get his truck in my tight residential neighborhood. So I gave him a secondary address, which is a school close by, so hopefully he can drop it off there. It is Sunday, so we should be good. I'm really hoping I didn't overpay for this car at the auction and that I don't end up upside down in this project. So hang on till later in the video and I'll reveal everything I have invested, including the auction win price. All right, let's go pick up the car. Are you excited to get a new car? She knows Land Rovers are riddled with maintenance issues. If you want a car with 0 issues, you buy a Toyota. And if you want heartache, you buy a Land Rover. See how it's sagged all the way down? You know what that means? It's jacked up. What's up?
Hello.
How you doing? Do you know if it drives? Does it run?
I know.
Okay.
But that is not good. I have jumper.
Okay, I have a jump too. It's never good when the air suspension on a Land Rover's all the way down like this. That means that the air suspension's broken. He's saying they put it on with a forklift. Obviously, that's what they do at the auction yard, but we don't have a forklift. I don't have a forklift. I tell the drivers every single time when I pay for the delivery service that I do not have a forklift. I also tell them that it's a residential property, and they say, yeah, absolutely, no issues. And here we are, issues. And the first issue is he wouldn't deliver to a residential property, and the second is we don't have a forklift. Can you pop the hood? I'll put on the jumper box. All right, it started, so that's good. Oh, well, we got her started. Now we got to get her off the truck. Looks good. Oh, it is blistering cold. I know you don't want to hear about it, but someone's got to hear about it. That's great that it runs. Can I move these? Want me to move them? Okay. He really doesn't want to hear too much from me. He probably thinks I'm filming him in case he does damage to the car. Great.
I need delivery inspection, okay?
Okay. What's that? Once the car gets off the trailer, the driver does a delivery inspection to make sure that there's no way for me to claim that the delivery service owes me money for damages. This is also where I give him a $25 tip, even though he already charged me $1,250 for delivery. Wonder if it drives. Bunch of aero lights on the dash, but that comes with ownership of one of these cars. All right, let's see if we can get it home now that it's dark and every light other than, oh no, the airbag light's on too. One of my favorite lines when I buy a new car is, first gear works, second gear works too, folks. We're good. All right, let's get this sucker home. The goal was to buy a car that's ready to drive, our first victory. But there's certainly a reason that this car was at the auction and not at a dealership. A white car always hides damages really well, but if you look close, you can see this car is littered with hundreds of 1 centimeter dents. That means this car was totaled for hail damage. Check out what it did to the windshield. The interior is literally mint. Hopefully that glass roof isn't cracked. I didn't even look at that. But as usual, most of the damage in these cars is to the flat panels like the roof and the hood. Just because it's dented doesn't mean the car doesn't deserve or benefit from a good cleaning. And if you've ever used a foam cannon before, you'll know you'll seek out any excuse to use it again. Auction cars come filthy. Starting with a neat and clean project is the best way to tackle a new auction car. These cars sit at the auction for a minimum of 2 months while the claims settle and the owners get paid. If there's a legal case involved, the cars can sit even longer until the case is resolved. And there's no dirtier place for the car to sit than at the auction yard. The yards are typically dirt or gravel, and you don't realize how quickly the car can appear neglected or even abandoned. Even a simple rinse with high-pressure hot water goes a long way. But most times it needs more than that. The MTM wide-mouth foam cannon and the SG-28 trigger gun are available as a set, and if you want to pick one up for yourself, it's about $100, and I'll link it down below in the description. I can't honestly recommend it enough. The foam is thick, and there's just something so satisfying about foaming a car for maximum decontamination. I was never really into car detailing until I got my hands on one of these cannons, so beware, it will open the gates to a new hobby. Unfortunately, while I sidetracked us with the foam cannon thing, the battery went dead. If you watched my last video, I mentioned buying a warehouse space, but the zoning for that warehouse wasn't conducive to automotive work, and it's not worth the headache of trying to get a zoning use variance, especially if I'm also sort of broke. With the oversized Range Rover in my small garage, it's time to address the only issue that I really want to spend money on, and that's replacing that battery. You can't sell a car with a dead battery. It's hopefully the only expense we'll really have. Although Range Rover is fancy, they still managed to put the hood release in the only place it makes sense. Can't say the same for the battery though. The positive terminal where we just jump-started this vehicle is just that, it's a post. It's not the battery. Although Range Rover was not too fancy in where they put their hood latch release, they were definitely too fancy in where they put their battery. Range Rover doesn't keep their battery under the hood. Nope, they put it in the trunk. My first mistake, I should have backed the vehicle in the garage because now there's not enough space to open the hatch. So if we put the car ever so slightly forward, we should be able to make enough space to at least open that rear hatch. Oh wow, the battery. How did it start? Maybe the battery's not that dead after all. How much room do we have? I don't know. That much? Do you think that gave us enough space? Let's find out. Oh, right on. Look at that. Like a glove. Oh my gosh. This was just detailed. Under the rear cargo deck of the Land Rover is the spare wheel. Given its standard wheel shape, the wheel has a large cavity on the underside of it. Land Rover is clever though, and they utilize the space very well. What's with the funny tread on the spare tire? The empty space under the wheel is filled with the air compressor for the adjustable air suspension. Under that is the battery. It's just a few common tools to lift the air compressor. And with the compressor out of the way, the original battery from 2015 becomes accessible. It's a massive battery. Although it's 9 years old, I'll hook it up to the battery tender to see if we can bring it back to life and maybe use it for something else. The replacement battery costs $245. I could have tried to salvage the original battery, but an intermittent or weak battery can make an electrically complicated car like this an unnecessary nightmare. So before I connect our battery, remember one special thing about our Range Rover when it was sitting on the trailer. The air suspension was totally collapsed compared to right now where it's lifted all the way up. Each corner of our Range Rover is sitting on an air shock, and those air shocks are prone to leaking over time. That big silver cylinder with that accordion rubber boot underneath it is the air shock. But because we just drove this car, the car's back up at level suspension, only to slowly leak back out overnight. The car's so smart that if one corner of the car starts leaking, the other corners of the car will balance out. And that's why when you wake up in the morning, the car is all the way down. But if I don't connect this battery to those smart computers and sensors, then the car can't adjust, and we'll quickly see which corner of our vehicle is leaking. If you look at the amount of space between the tire and the fender, you'll notice that over time that space is going to decrease on one corner of this car, and we'll know that that corner is the problem area. Whichever corner is sagging the most likely needs a new $800 air strut. While the suspension reveals its leak to us, I can use this time to lower the skid plate. Because under the skid plate is the oil drain bolt, and upon removal we can evacuate all of the oil. While it drains, I fill up the washer fluid so the next owner is set up for a safe and full view driving experience. A new drain bolt decreases the risk of stripping out the old one, and it also comes with a new sealing washer. The bolt goes back in, and that's the end of having to lay on the cold, wet concrete. Really, I topped off the washer fluid because I wanted a clear container to evaluate our old oil. which looks good. The engine cover is removed to reveal the oil filter and oil fill spout. The filter requires this cool 90mm socket to remove, which costs an additional $19. I could have probably found a cheap, creative way to remove the oil filter, but sometimes having the right tool for the job is everything, even if the right tool is also the wrong tool. You shouldn't need a breaker bar to remove an oil filter. The right tool is the wrong tool. There's nothing alarming about the way this old filter looks, but it feels good to install this beautiful new one. It snaps right in. It also gets a new O-ring. This time going back in, I'll be sure to do what the last mechanic failed to do. Hey Siri, how many foot-pounds is 25 Newton meters? 18. A torque wrench ensures that we don't break the plastic oil filter cover upon reinstallation. 18 foot-pounds. Way less. That's what I get. I was about to talk trash on the previous mechanic, and I dropped my wrench on the white bumper. Way less than the previous mechanic torqued it to. With the hardware torqued to specification, we can move on to filling the engine with new oil. Some car makers are so courteous as to put the oil type on the oil cap. 0W20. 8.5 quarts of synthetic motor oil and a new filter. In the short amount of time that it took me to do an oil change on this vehicle, I don't see any measurable difference between the front and rear suspension. I could have measured the starting position and then checked a few minutes later to see if it sank at all, but I'm telling you, with enough time, this sucker's going to the floor. Enough time should include shutting down the garage, a full 8 hours rest, a morning coffee, a shower, a few household tasks, both inside and out, which should buy us enough time to see the suspension on the Land Rover leak out. So how about that? Overnight plus some, there's no ride height change in the front or back end of the car, which means that this Range Rover is not leaking itself to the ground. It's intentionally lowering the ride height on its own. And the reason that it's likely doing that is because the ride height sensor is the problem. It thinks it's crooked, so it lowers the opposite side, and then it does this until the ride height is all the way down, and the car's sitting in your driveway bottomed out. And that means that there's a ride height adjustment sensor error. It's either a bad sensor or this dead battery was throwing all sorts of inappropriate data between the sensor and the control units, and the car was just lowering itself inappropriately. My bet is that because it's an auction car, it had a bad battery, and the sensors just weren't working right. So before I go replacing any sensors, let's reconnect our battery and drive this car around a bit. I'm so proud of you.
Are you ready?
I'm so proud of you for not talking during that. Battery. With the compressor bolted back in, the funny tread spare tire mounted in the car, and the freshly detailed trunk cover reinstalled, the electronics should be sorted, but the car will likely need a test drive to confirm that. So how about this weird finding? There are two photos on the auction listing. One photo where this mirror cover is in place, and the immediate next photo, the cover is gone. I did buy one of these off the internet. I don't know where it went, why it's not here. I was gonna take it out with the delivery driver. I thought maybe he lost it on his way and I could put in a claim for them to buy a new one. But then when I checked the auction listing website, again, one photo, it had the mirror cover, and another photo, it didn't. So I bought a new one. They actually were only like $45 on the internet. So this looks like it's gonna go on just fine. There you go. All right, let's see. First start, we've got keys, engine on, no check engine light, tire pressure monitor sight, airbag light. Airbag light. Maybe I gotta drive it a bit. These cars scare the crap out of me. Car feels so tall. I feel like I'm gonna hit the ceiling. Are we close? What's that for? What's the exclamation point? So it doesn't mean low oil. Oh, hey, look. How are you? So just in the time that it took to drive out of my driveway and onto the road, we're only down to one error light, which is an airbag light, which is bizarre. There are no airbags deployed. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I wanted to drive the car to see if our oil level was okay, because there's no dipstick on these cars. Not only is there no dipstick, but you can't actually actively check the oil level while you're driving the car, or while the car is on for that matter. So you have to turn the car off, wait 10 minutes, and then you can do an electronic oil level check. So I figure we're about 2 minutes into driving this car right now. If there was an oil level concern, we'd probably know by now. I'm hoping if I just keep driving, that airbag light should go away soon. Like many auction vehicles, and especially with Range Rovers, sometimes you just have to change the battery and get that car back on the road to clear most of the electrical faults. Unfortunately, it seems like our airbag light is here to stay, and no matter how hard we drive or how far we drive, crack in the windshield, that's not going anywhere either. I just drove past I don't know if that was a police officer or a park ranger, but I'm realizing, oh no, oh, he's going the other direction, good. I have no license plate on this car and I have no driver's license on me. And the car's not inspected or registered or titled in my name. Fancy interior though. I stand corrected, the airbag light is gone. An auction Range Rover, no lights on the dash. That's a first. I always end up spending too much money fixing every little issue with these cars before I put them up for sale. So I'm thinking the only thing I'm gonna do is replace the windshield, and then we're gonna try and sell this and see how much money we can get. So when I bought this car, I actually accounted for about a $1,300 windshield replacement, which is what it costs on eBay or on Facebook Marketplace for a used Range Rover windscreen. But on Safelight's website, they're actually selling these units for $530 installed, and that's a brand new windscreen. So rather than try and sell a car or flip a car for profit with a broken windshield or replace it myself for $1,300, I'll let Safelight replace it for less than half. Why is the camera beeping? Well, we're at Safelight, we're getting a new windshield. It'd be nice if they could give us a new hood too, but for now, just broken glass getting fixed. My camera battery died, so I'm just recording this in the event that my camera battery died and also didn't record the last 5 minutes that I was inside. So hopefully I don't need this footage. I guess you're Irish Mike?
People just think, oh, well, I'll just go inside, you know. But outside noises, if there's a generator that runs out of your door and it wakes you up every 12 hours, you know, then you gotta do better windows, you know, that kind of stuff.
Understood.
Just protect your material, protect your environment.
Take care. That was the craziest Uber ride I've ever been in. His automatic braking saved us from rear-ending a school bus. I'll leave it at that. Hudson, it's me. So one day later, and it really only was $530 for a new windscreen, which means I have about $700 left over budgeted into this project where I can still make money afterwards. I came up with an idea as to where to spend that money. A hood. I found one locally yesterday for $650 delivered, and I started working on the R8 yesterday. I'm not gonna reveal what color I'm wrapping the R8 because I want you to watch that video when it comes out. I didn't realize until now how difficult it is to really capture the dents of a white hood on camera, but if you get the right angle, you can see it. I don't know if it's because this guy was desperate to get rid of this stolen hood, or if it's really a genuine company who offers free shipping to local buyers, but he delivered the hood yesterday. I initially wasn't planning on working on the Range Rover anymore, so I brought the R8 into the garage and it's disassembled, so we have to finish the car outside before we sell it. You can see it's pretty cold. It actually snowed yesterday. Buy the house with the big garage, kids. Freezing out here. You know, it's a real privilege to have your own garage workspace to work in, especially a heated one that's insulated, and I don't take that for granted, but I don't know why I do this to myself. Now it's actually snowing outside, and I have no way of working in the garage because I've disassembled the R8. So now I have to wait for the snow to stop or just work out in the bad weather. It's all self-inflicted problems. I need to just pick one car to work on. I know the green's funny looking, but just trust the process. Rather than work in the cold, I decided to wait 2 months for the snow to melt, and I got a haircut. I've been driving the Range Rover all along with its dented hood. Although it's been running great, the warm weather leaves no more excuse to store this perfectly undented panel in my garage. The warm weather also brings out my pregnant assistant, and I got to use free child labor.
Mommy, Daddy, Mommy.
She's great help. My wife, that is. The new hood is a perfect paint match, and it bolts it right up nicely as it's a genuine Land Rover hood. It even shuts, and the swap didn't trigger any new check engine lights. So in total, I've spent $2,900 fixing this car. That's $2,900 for parts. I don't charge myself labor because I'm not gonna charge or pay myself. But at the auction, this car cost me $10,900, which is a lot of money. But if you think the cheapest version of this car that you could buy would be about $15,000, and the most expensive would be somewhere around $25,000 to $30,000 for higher level trims like Autobiography or even SVR, you could see that in total, I spent $13,800. So on a bad day, this car makes $2,000. On a good day, it makes $5,000. And before you criticize that number, ask yourself, how much does your hobby make you? Sorry, that was mean. Someone buy my Land Rover.